It's year 2 of the Lowell Kinetic sculpture race, where the quirky and the clever come out for a good time. A sporting event like no other, where teams propel their homemade, human-powered contraptions through a variety of challenges. Race director Michael Roundy describes the course.
Going down Middle Street over cobblestones, of which they will continue to race off towards the Songus Center, where they will be going through the 50-foot long mud pit. It's 6 inches deep, and if they survive that, they'll be racing their way back down here to the waterfront, where they're going to go down the boat ramp and navigate the waters, come back up onto the sand here, onto the beach, and then race back to the finish line.
Participants are encouraged to dress up in outrageous costumes, blow bubbles, and in general be as goofy as possible. It's a race so committed to having a good time that it's actually mandated by the rules, which gives a time penalty for crankiness. Some of last year's spectators were so enthusiastic they were inspired to build their own machines for this year, like the father-son duo Inconceivable.
Last year we were here at the Lowell Kinetic sculpture race, and he looked at a thing called Think Tank that was driving around and kind of fun, and they built another vehicle over there this year. He said, we have to build one of those this year. So we planned ahead and then failed to follow through on that plan, and then at the last minute got our act together and built a vehicle. So Inconceivable was originally intended to be a full-size, well, as full-size as you can get on the Massachusetts roads, steamboat. So we have a working paddle wheel in the back, which we hope actually spins when we're in the water. We have a lot of flotation, which supports my heavy butt in the back. And we have 2 pilots. My son Dan and I basically did all the building and put it together. We have supportive crew. This is my son Thomas. We have friends from down in Nashua, so we're all from up in New Hampshire, and we're down here hoping to stay out of the Lowell River as much as possible.
We came here last year, saw it, and we looked at each other and said, we're doing that. And then we spent the whole winter designing this elaborate duct system, and in the end, we just winged it. We are from Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and this is Quack Attack. It has 20 to 25 rolls of duck brand duct tape holding it together, fluorescent yellow, and one big duck that we call Phil. And we have a whole bunch of little ducklings in their own little duck hats that are going to be following us. I'll make way for ducklings. We have 2 bikes in tandem. We had to get the steering all set, and we think that they're going to be able to get through pretty fast. It's not very heavy, and we're going to have to get through the mud. That's going to probably be the trickiest part, just because the 2 bikes getting through the mud last year they had a lot of trouble with that, so we'll see how we do. We did a lot of calculations on the buoyancy, and we have no idea if it's going to work, so we're going to find out. And we're going to go right into the river and go down and see if the duck floats. We're pretty confident that the duck will float. We're just not sure if we will.
Newcomer Team Skeleton Crew plan on an unusual water entry.
We have the raft that's actually going to be flipped over, and then obviously we have the barrels with the flotation devices and stuff like that. So we're going to have the tandem bike, everybody on top of it, while we're going to be paddling into the water.
Some Kinetic veterans return to race again. They got bogged down in the mud last year, but now have very different solutions for the course. Jay brought his iconic flying fish for another try.
Last year, you might recall that I got crippled at the mud pit, that my drivetrain got twisted like a noodle. So this year, I've rebuilt the drivetrain. I took the same sort of design as last year and reinforced that hub with a muffler pipe on it, so that's strengthened. And then I added 3 more chains, actually no, 2 more chains and 2 more sets of gears. So the gear reduction is way slower than last year. Hopefully the mud pit won't be a problem. I've got tow ropes and a great team with me again, just in case though. But I will try to ace the race.
Is the name.
Team Action Nerds took part in last year's race with the very popular Think Tank, which needed to be rescued from the water. This year they're going in a completely different direction and with a very different philosophy than Jay.
Let's see how else we can tackle these obstacles other than just a crazy drivetrain, because if you start stacking gears and more gears, it gets real complicated and prone to break and expensive and hard to build. This year the machine is called Ice Cream Floats. because it's sort of like a giant scoop of ice cream, but it's also entirely ice cream powered. We've been packing in the ice cream for months. Off-road, things that help get over large obstacles, are really big wheels. So we built a really big wheel. This whole ball is a wheel. The whole thing spins around an axle through the middle of it. And so it is a 7-foot tall wheel. And then the problem of driving it, we're like, well, we could hook up some pedals and crazy drivetrain, but it's big enough that we can just climb inside of it and crawl forwards like a big hamster ball. And that's how we're planning on going through the mud today. You know, I've been telling people all morning that last year with the tank, we ran the entire water stage the day before the race and had no problems, and then at the race nearly sank. We ran the entire water stage 2 days ago and had no problems. So who knows what that means?
They're doing it for the glory, of course, but there are a variety of other awards as well.
Yes, there is a winner. But in addition to there being a winner, there are so many more awards that our teams are all vying for. There's awards for best artistry, there's awards for best mechanics, there's an award for being dead last, which went to our favorite, the tank, last year. There's an award for biggest splash into the water. There's the Grand Mediocrity Award, which signifies that you were pretty much about average all the way through.
And after reading the one rule to rule them all,
I will have everybody fun!
it finally off. It didn't take long for some to discover that the glory would have to wait.
Possible to pedal, but it is a fairly quick and easy fix.
It took 6 slaves and 7 soldiers to make this at Lowell Makes. Lowell Makes is a maker space just around the corner. It's a community space, all about creativity. You see, we have 3 engaged wheels in the back that resemble the drivetrain from a Model T Ford. So we were going way back in some of this stuff.
They finally got on their way, but the father-son duo of Inconceivable had troubles of their own.
We've got a little bit of a chain malfunction, so it keeps popping off every time we pedal, which is fine for him, because then he doesn't have to pedal and I do all the work. Not so fine for me, because I'm old and lazy. So we're working on fixing that right now. We're almost there. We got some helpers. At least you're doing a great job helping us keep from being run over by everyone else that's coming out to watch, and people are cheering us on, so it's great. Okay. Booyah!
Eventually, all made their way to the Songus Center, where the maddening mud pit awaited. Would it be any easier than last year? Quack Attack did just that. They attacked the mud with gusto. And after putting a little muscle into it, finally made it through. The mousetrap rolled right on over. No problems here. Another year, another shot at the mud. Would Jay and his flying fish make it through? Well, they don't call it the maddening mud pit for no reason. After a mighty struggle, he had to call in the troops yet again to get a push. No ace award for this year. There's always next year, Jay.
Shamrock, Circle Health, Eastern Bank,
guy gave us all a lesson in tenacity. Talk about falling down and getting back up again. He did it over and over and over. No worries, there's always the Merrimack River to wash off all that mud. It's time for the action nerds to bring on their machine. Can they do it? Things looked a bit shaky at first. The crowd roaring their approval when Nick stepped up. And then again, when they proved that two nerds are better than one. The sculptures hit the road again on their way to the waterfront to take their chances navigating the Merrimack River. Will they make it through the water and up the sand beach? We'll soon find out. For now, the participants and the thousands of spectators who attend make their way to the Lowell Heritage State Park, taking a break and visiting the food trucks while listening to live entertainment. Then it's back to the race and time to make a splash. Quack Attack wasted no time going down the boat ramp and took the Merrimack like a duck to water. The worst showed that they were anything but. The skeleton crew promised us an unusual water entry, and boy, did they deliver. Jay's flying fish dove right into the river. We already knew it was seaworthy, but they navigated the Merrimack with style. It's time for the action nerds to give it a go. They gave the crowds a bit of a scare when they started teetering. But eventually, we all found out that ice cream really does float. Check out that propeller. But the crew of the Mousetrap never seemed to get their sea legs, having a rough go of it right from the start. The Merrimack River seemed determined to claim a victim, but they gamely fought on. It was the Battle of the Merrimack, everyone racing to get to the shore. but getting up the beach is another challenge. Nick said that coming up out of the water was perhaps his favorite part of the race.
We knew the machine was prone to like tipping way over side to side, and we were pretty confident it wasn't going to flip, but the crowd didn't know that, and so I was worried that the crowd going like, whoa, whoa, was going to like throw me off, but I was into it enough that I knew Sarah had it handled, that she could monkey around and make sure we didn't flip, and I just had to keep cranking that ball to get us onto dry land.
However, the mousetrap never quite succeeded in escaping the clutches of the river. As much as they paddled and toiled, they never seemed to get very far. Thank goodness for the rescue boat, which moved in to help them to shore. There's always next year, kids.
Which was a surprise.
Oh my God, you're the worst! It's the worst!
And so it's time to head to the finish line to celebrate successes and mull over what didn't quite work. There's a reason they call it the Triathlon of the art world. It takes a lot to build these marvels of art and engineering, human-powered art sculptures that race over road, water, mud, and sand. Jay thinks he has a pretty good idea of what went wrong.
I kept having all sorts of mechanical issues with my way too complicated drivetrain. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So I think I figured out the various things that are wrong. I don't know if I'll try to fix them for next year or just build something new. Probably build something new.
Carl from the Action Nerds was pleased to be an inspiration to others. He was happy with his machine's performance and offers up some sage advice for next year.
To get more fathers and sons out there building stuff like this together, and friends in their garages building stuff, I mean, that's just great. We tried to keep it really simple this year, since the tank treads didn't work in the mud last year. So we just went with one big sphere, and we were actually inspired by the mousetrap, which is right behind us, that big inflatable cylinder that just sailed right through the mud. So we tried to keep it really simple, really light this year, and so that's where we got the idea for the big sphere. And it's great. The crowd loved it, which we're super excited about. Yeah, the moral of the story is don't think too long and hard. Build something and test it, because you're going to learn way more from testing it than you are from sitting around and thinking about it. You'll learn a lot from sitting around thinking about it, but test, test, test.